And you may say, well, look, no, I've got rights. I am not my name. I'm living flesh. And that's all very well. But you go to an airline company and the person behind the counter at the desk will say, well, that's all very well. I can see that you're not your name. I can see that you're living flesh. But unfortunately, I work for a company which requires that I get identification from you in order to issue you with a ticket. So I don't really care. I'm happy that you're alive, but I'm in a position where I don't have a choice regardless of what rights you may or may not have. So if you want me to issue a ticket for you without you showing me ID, then just go off and see the government and get a waiver from them and bring it back to me so that I can show it to my boss, and I'm happy to issue you with a ticket because that's the company policy and it's a private company, and hey, I just work for the company. So you see, people are not in a position where they can say yes or no, regardless of what your rights may be, because these people work for private companies and these private companies have policies. That's just the way it is. And even if you did go and get a waiver from the government and bring it back and say, well, here it is, I've got a waiver, they'll say, well, how do I know you're the person that this waiver applies to? Because there is no photograph on this waiver and there's no name. This could apply to anybody in this room. So how do I know it's you? How do I know you didn't steal this from somebody? So you see, there is a reason for people to have identification for certain things. If you want to go and rent a house, folks, try and go renting a house without some identification. You can scream you've got rights all you like, but if the rental office isn't going to rent you a house because they don't know who you are, then they're simply not going to rent you a house because they don't know who you are. And that's just the way it is, regardless of what rights you think you may have. See, this is why I still have a license. This is why I have a passport. This is why I still have identification. I mean, if I'm in a position where I have to deal with authority, I can say, well, yeah, I'm not my name. I can deal with things in that way. I won't ever adhere to their corporate rules if I'm in a position where adhering to those corporate rules will cause me harm. But if by using identification and using parts of the corporate system that are in place, I can gain some benefit to myself or some benefit for others or make my life somewhat easier, then I'm quite prepared to do so. And this isn't copping out. This isn't not walking your talk. This isn't kowtowing to the system. This is simply using common sense and doing what I may to be able to navigate my way through it with a minimal amount of fuss, because that's the only way I'm able to keep doing what I do and to keep helping awaken others to the fact that this whole fictional corporate system exists. So I think people need to think very, very carefully before completely throwing their identification away and simply saying, I'm not my name, I don't need any ID. Because they're going to find that if they live within Western society, that yes, they do need some identification. And it's perfectly reasonable for people to want to see identification from people. Like I said, folks, you can go and get an airline ticket and order it over the phone and say, yeah, I'm John Smith, I've ordered an airline ticket, I'm here to pick it up. And they'll say, well, show me that you're the John Smith that ordered the airline ticket. And if you can't, why should they give you the ticket? So I can see that it does have its place. It's just that when the ID is used to enslave you to a corporate system because you're tricked into claiming that you actually are the name and the legal connotations that go along with making that claim, that is the issue. The issue isn't the fact that you're required to have identification. The issue is the fact of how you are tricked into granting jurisdiction to a corporate system by claiming you are a name, not that you have a name, not that you use a name, but that you are a name. That's the difference, you see, folks. So I think it's very important that people look at things from the correct perspective when looking at this whole issue. And I'm saying this in response to some of the things I've seen happening since the release of Kate of Gaia's Babylon Has Fallen document. I'm seeing people take this to the extreme and just think that if they suddenly burn all their ID, that they're going to be free and the world is going to change. And burning all your ID is a very, very foolish thing to do, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. Simply because you need to keep 1 foot in and 1 foot out, otherwise you're just limiting your options. And at this stage of the game, I really think that's not the best approach to have, because we need to use all the options that we have open to us at this stage, folks. The whole thing really is the issue of the name, the whole thing is the issue of the two names, the two entities, the entity described on the certificate of live birth and the entity described on the birth certificate. Again, the certificate of live birth refers to the flesh and blood, the living being with a soul that exists in the real world, and the birth certificate refers to the corporate entity that was created on top of that living soul, and to which the living soul has been taught and trained and essentially tricked into identifying themselves as. That's the issue. The issue isn't that you have a name. The issue is that you claim you are the name. But you cannot be a name, ladies and gentlemen. A name is one of two things. A name is ink spots on a piece of paper, or it is a vocalization. It is a series of phonetics. It is an oral sound, something that is spoken. It's a frequency that exists on the airwaves. It's a noise. It's a sound. It can't be you because you are living flesh. That's the difference, you see. A name doesn't have any solid structure. You have solid structure. A name doesn't have solid structure. The only solid structure it has is if it's written down as ink spots on a piece of paper. But you can't be either of those things. You are living flesh. The name that you believe you are is simply a calling that you use. People can make that sound and you are likely to respond to that sound, but you are not that sound. That's the thing, folks. The thing is that we claim we are the name, and because we believe this corporate system is real and we've locked ourselves within it by claiming we are the name, we are now subject to all of its corporate rules. That's the thing. The problem isn't that you have identification. I think identification is quite okay. I can't see anything wrong with having identification. It keeps people honest. It keeps people knowing who they're dealing with, which, as I said, in the case of buying things like airline tickets, can be somewhat useful. And that is not the issue. The issue is not that we have identification. The issue is that we have been tricked into believing that we each are our name when we are not. So yeah, sorry to repeat myself so much through that little bit, but I really did want to try to get that point home to people. The name is the linchpin. The fact that people believe they are their names, this is the linchpin that they use to get you. When you have someone from authority ask you for your name and you give it to them, they can suddenly identify you. You know, they look at the crowd and they just see it as a whole bunch of corporate chattels, a whole bunch of warehouse stock, a whole bunch of boxes of cereal, but they don't know which box of cereal they're dealing with until the cereal identifies itself. Hi, yes, I'm Rice Bubbles. This is Cornflakes over here and that's Weet-Bix next to him. So then the officer can look at you and go, okay, well, I can look at Rice Bubbles, I can look at Cornflakes, I can look at Weet-Bix, I can look them all up and I can see everything about these boxes of cereal, so now I know how to categorize them. And that's the way it works, folks. And the name is the linchpin that they use for the system of control. But the systems of control are everywhere. They're all around you all the time in everything that you do. With all of the wireless technology and all the new things they're bringing in, all the new government categorizations of things, all the surveillance cameras, everything they're doing. One thing you've got to understand about government, folks, is that government is not your friend. Nothing the government does is done for the benefit of the people. Every single thing the government does is done for the benefit of government, and it is done as a means of exercising further control over the people. That's all the government is there for. The government is there to appease the people while a slavery system is built around them. And it is a slavery system which will consist of not only name fraud and name slavery and debt slavery, but also electronic slavery, mental slavery, thought crime, every single thing they can think of to curtail the human experience and make every action that you perform, every emotion you feel, and every aspect of your lives taxable, commercially viable, and controllable. And that is what every single action government performs is aimed at achieving. It's all about exploitation. It's about control, exploiting the resources of the planet and controlling the people as much as possible. See, that's what they harvest from you, folks, is your energy. More than anything. People think that the government and these rich banksters do what they do because they want money. No, it's not money, folks. They don't care about money. Money is fiction. Money is simply the glue that holds the corporate mechanism together. What they care about is harvesting your energy, harvesting your soul, harvesting you. That's what they care about. And it is this process of control that every aspect of this system is aimed at further refining. Government exists merely to put a nice face on it. Government exists to make you think that it's all being done for your benefit, when the reality is that nothing whatsoever that the government does is ever done for the well-being or the best interests of the people. They just like to put a nice face on things. I think it's wonderful the way they do. It's actually quite comical.